we talked about, being tactical and change. How effective and is this emotion holding back activism when we talk about, effective policy changes? Well, it's like, are we just maybe too focused on breaking it down instead of focusing on a solution to the issue?
Do you mean that a lot of the time we're driven by kind of a feeling of anger or even fear, as opposed to
as opposed to maybe
mobilizing around a more hopeful?
Or maybe just rational thinking about the issue.
That's an interesting question. I mean, I don't think we should necessarily shy away from our emotions. Like, I think our emotional response to things is important.
And it's useful. I think anger is a useful emotion that leads to action.
But I agree.
I think also to captivate other people, I mean, you have to be emotional.
Yeah, right. The most captivating speakers have emotions behind, in their soul.
I mean, if you campaign for something and you're stale and dull, who's really going to be...
I agree. And do you know what? Like, we've learned over years now, like, you think, well, I'm constantly getting this argument back. What's the answer to that argument? And you'll come up with an answer and it will be watertight, right? But no one cares, right? Because that argument still sounds better. You can see this with Trump, right? This goes back to this, I mean, he talks nonsense, but it somehow works. There's something in. So I think, actually, to be honest, I think a lot of campaigners have been almost too rational and think, well, if I have the right answer, that's going to convince everybody, and have been absolutely astonished when it doesn't convince everybody, because I think emotional life is also important, and it's what inspires people. What I do agree with you on is, I think it's important, and it's the other thing I think we're a bit bad about, is I think if we do mobilize around an emotion, that emotion is often anger or even fear. And I think a lot of people just going about their lives, want to know that they're going to be okay, want to know that they're going to have security, and want to know that in some way their life is going to be better. And I think we struggle to do that. I think we're not very good at it in general. We talk about climate change, and 80% of the time, I feel like we're mobilizing people around fear. And I'm not sure fear is that useful in terms of long-term engagement, getting people long-term engaged in activism. You can do spurts of it, and you can get very burnt out and despair. But I think we need to find a way of saying, look, if we're going to deal with climate change, society is going to be radically different. And, there are going to be things that you might miss. But we have an offer of a society based on more collectivism, on community, on better public transport. There's all sorts of things you can put in that place. How do we sum that up? And I think that's something we've not done well enough at all when it comes to climate change. And I think it's a turnoff for an awful lot of people. You go back to the days when people were fighting earlier forms of capitalism. Look at the communists in Russia or whatever, when they would in 1917, and they were offering people land and bread and peace. And I think often if you listen to us, we don't sound like we're offering land and bread and peace. We sound like we're offering you something to get really angry about or be really scared by.
That's quite interesting.